We're here Monday, fresh week, lunchtime. Hope everybody is doing well. I hope this ends up being a great week for everyone. And we got a lot of content today that was given to us on Saturday night with the showcase tune-up pay-per-view, if we will. First of all, shout out to all the new subscribers, all the new followers over on Twitter. Appreciate last week gained over 100 followers over on Twitter. And then this week was one of the best weeks I've had on YouTube in a while. I believe I was over 13,000 views the past 10 days and 50 new subscribers. So I appreciate all the new people that have been coming over. And we'll try to give you fresh new content both here in long form and in short form daily here on this channel. Now, I took yesterday off, family stuff. I wanted to talk about the fight yesterday, but took yesterday and it gave me a little bit more time to collect my thoughts and think about what I was going to discuss today. New Year, same crap from Protective Boxing Company. Wheelchair Man John, appreciate you swinging through. It's official. Poo Andre is not deserving of a Canelo fight. Appreciate my guy JC always coming through first. He's always coming through first. That's my guy over there. And by the way, Hispanics Causing Panic is back tonight. Tonight, Hispanic Causing Panic after a long layoff is back tonight over on D Styles channel at 8 p.m. Central. 8 p.m. Central. So make sure to hit that alert when he drops it later. 8 p.m. Central over on D Style Boxing's channel. Hispanics Causing Panic. Myself and D Style over there as well over on his channel. You think Boots' inability to cut the ring off against Karen is a red flag, or is it something he can work on? Let's just start there. Nice segue. Appreciate that, Chauncey Pearls. With Boots and Boo Boo underwhelmed. They're underwhelmed. And we've come to expect that with Boo Boo, right? A long career of long odds fights, heavy favorite after heavy favorite after heavy favorite, alibis outside of the ring as they didn't offer me this much money, so I couldn't take that fight. Oh, this guy didn't fight the mandatory when I was mandatory, but he should have made something happen in his career at this point. And last year proved that for us, right? Twice avoided Janabek, twice avoided Parker. So we're here now. And what happens? He coasts to a decision victory against inferior opposition that he is 20-1 favorite against. And he leaves everybody forgetting his performance once again. Boots is just not a guy that will ever fly off the radar. He's in his 30s now. He's been around a long time. He's a vet. And if guys are avoiding him, it's because he's giving them reasons to avoid him. Nobody wants to see the guy fight. Nobody. It's a forgettable performance. But why that differs from Boots Ennis is Boots Ennis has shown flash. Boots Ennis has shown otherworldly talent in fights. He's shown that the eye test, he flies off the screen, right? So what happens on Saturday night? It's out of character performance against a guy, Karen, who is a 40-1 favorite against. Huge favorite. And not only a huge favorite to win the fight, a huge favorite to win by knockout. And what happens? He doesn't knock him out. And we're being told that, oh, you're being unfair to Boots because Boots won every second of the round, which if that's true or not, I don't know. Subjective. I don't think he won every second of every round, but subjective. If you had him winning every second of every round, that's fine. But if that's what qualifies to you as acceptable for Boots Ennis at that point, then your standards of Boots Ennis that you've set aren't consistent. Because I'm being told on Twitter, on YouTube, that this guy is the reincarnation. He's the second coming of Sugar Ray Leonard. He's the best welterweight we've seen since the 80s. He's the best welterweight in the world right now. Bud Errol, he beats him easy right now. He is the best welterweight in the world right now. Virgil, no, he doesn't even have to fight Virgil. Doesn't have to fight him. He's already better than Virgil. He's the best welterweight in the world. He's the best we've seen since Ray Leonard. He's the best pound-for-pound fighter we've seen since Roy Jones. Look how he glides through the ring. His feet are barely touching. He's just flying out there, right? And so you're the one who sets those standards. And D-Style has talked about it, right? It's like that pre-anointing syndrome, that preordained syndrome. It's like the guy's already there. He doesn't have to prove it. He's already there. He's already the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, the best welterweight, the best guy we've seen pound-for-pound since the 90s. Okay, you set those standards. So let's grade on a curve according to your standards if we're going to stay consistent. And when I see guys, when Boots puts out these performances, and the same guys saying this stuff start to do the damage control, right? It's like, oh, well, he was running. Karen was running. How in the world can Boots get a stoppage against a guy who was running? How did Inoue get it against Butler? Butler was in there to survive. Butler was in there throwing one punch at a time, holding, getting out of there. But guess what? Inoue got the stoppage. Special fighters get the stoppage, and that's at the top level. You're fighting a guy named Karen, who you're a 40-1 underdog, and respectfully. That's being respectful to, because we're respectful of all the fighters, this guy Karen, but huge gap, right? Huge, humongous gap between the two. So if you set these standards for Boots, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't act like this guy is the greatest thing and they dropped him off on his alien ship and you gifted us, the boxing guys gifted us this fighter, and then when he goes out there and casually wins 12 rounds or whatever that was on Saturday night, and he's being booed out of the arena by the people who were cheering him when he was headed to the ring. When that happens, and I start to see the damage control. Oh, you're being, look, the fact that you're saying that a guy who won all 12 rounds, 120-108, had a terrible performance shows that you have high standards of, no, we're grading on your curve. We're grading on the curve that you set. You set this standard. You said that this guy was the greatest welterweight we've seen since the 80s, the 90s, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters we've seen in this sport. He doesn't even have to fight the fights because he's already the best welterweight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When that happens, man, and Boots isn't pushing back on this stuff. He's like, no. He's not like, no, relax. I need to fight more fights. They're accepting it, right? Boots and his team, yeah, we're the best. Come on, bring it on. When you do that, you need to be fighting more than once per year, number one. And number two, when you do fight, you need to get guys out of there. It's what we've talked about with Boots constantly on this channel. What have we said on this channel? If Boots isn't getting the fights, fair enough. Look, that's one of the reasons why I do think Boots is a super talented guy. We've said it on this channel. Two ways you can judge a fighter really is how do his peers act when his name is brought up. People don't really want to fight Boots. I've accepted that. Everybody's accepted that. Guys don't want to fight Boots. That's fine. It's fine. That's one of the two ways. His peers don't really want to fight him. That's fine. But at the same time, if you're not getting the fights, you have to be uber active. You got to be fighting 3-4 times per year, quarterly, like Gennady Golovkin, against the best opposition available to you. You need to be in front of fans' faces. And that's one of the other issues is this guy is on undercards. He's 7 years into his career, 6-7 years, and he's never headlined a card yet. How do you plan on marketing this guy if you want him to be a star? How do you plan on marketing him? If you want to corner other top fighters in the division, how do you plan on building a base for this guy in order for him to do that? With Golovkin, you can talk about his level of opposition from, say, 2012 to 2015, but he was in people's faces. He was giving you highlight reel KOs, and he was building an organic fan base to where eventually that risk was going to meet the reward, and guys would have to fight him. And that's what happened. The Canelo fight eventually came. The Danny Jacobs fight before that eventually came. Murata eventually came. These fights eventually came because they cornered the opposition in the weight class. How do you plan on doing that when this guy isn't headlining cards? He's buried on undercards, and he's fighting once per year. And the reason he's fighting once per year is because Showtime doesn't have it in the budget, obviously. Right? He's a Showtime fighter. He's exclusive to Showtime, but he's not a PBC fighter. And that's not a good place to be because he can only fight PBC fighters, but he's not a PBC fighter. So Al Heyman's not going to be ready, openly ready and eager to feed his guys to Boots. He's not in a good spot. But when you're exclusive to a network that is going heavy pay-per-view, heavy, almost every card that Showtime announces is a pay-per-view. And when you're not a pay-per-view fighter yet, you haven't even headlined, from where I'm sitting, headlined a regular Showtime card. How do you plan on being the main event on a Showtime card? And how do you plan on getting dates when you're not a pay-per-view fighter and Showtime is going heavy pay-per-view? I don't know. But what I do know is that performance was not good. I don't care what people are out there saying. That was not a good performance. It was not a good. You got to get, if you're special, you got to get guys like that out. I don't want to hear running, not running. And to be honest, was Karen really openly running? Like, was that an Arislandi Lara versus Canelo performance from Karen? And I'm not here saying throw Boots away by any means. I still think the guy is a super talented fighter. When people say, oh, he's not ready for Boots and Errol, that's a leap in the other direction. That's not the case either. It's if Bud fought Boots or if Errol fought Boots, I would look at that fight, that matchup, and I would be like, that's an interesting matchup. It's interesting. So I'm not saying throw the guy away. All I'm saying is these guys could be helping themselves more than they are. And you're the ones who made the leap to say this is the greatest welterweight we've seen since the 80s and 90s, the best pound-for-pound fighter we've seen since Roy Jones. You're the ones who made those leaps. So you can't be mad when we judge on that curve. You can't. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And I see a growing number of boxing fans playing it this way. Is they want to act like their fighters don't even have to fight the fights. They're already the best fighter out there. And then when you do a little pushback when their fighter looks average, they say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why these high standards for these fighters? You must think the fighter's great. No, I'm just judging on your curve. To be fair with Boots, this is why fighters need to stay active. Inactivity might have been the reason why he looked flat Saturday. And that's true. Who's been talking about inactivity in the sport? Myself. My guy Steve Kim's been talking about it, but top 10 pound for pound 14 times, top 50 pound for pound 69 times, top 100 pound for pound 130 times. These guys are fighting on average 1.3 fights per year. So the problem that they have is they need to be sharp. How are you able to stay sharp when you're fighting once per year? Obviously, fight fans who know what they're looking at and have followed the sport for generations are going to expect more of you if you're less active. We're seeing less of you, so you need to give us more. You're giving us less output, so we need to see more consistency, and we need to see better content when you do give us content. So when a Boots Ennis comes out for the first time in 8-9 months and fights this guy Karen, who is a 40-1 favorite against, and it's clear throughout the fight that he's not going to stop this guy, and the 19,000 in attendance start booing him when they were fans of his as he's entering the ring, I don't know. Do with that what you want, but I don't see how we could say anything other than that was a letdown. That was underwhelming. I'm used to it with Boo Boo Andre. Like when Boo Boo Andre comes out and underwhelms against a guy he's a 20-1 favorite against, I say that's Boo Boo, right? That's Boo Boo. Boo Boo is just a guy who's going to pop up every once in a while. He's going to complain about a bunch of stuff. He's going to call out fighters that, of course, shouldn't be fighting him because he's not giving us anything. And he's going to get in there and he's going to coast to a decision victory, and everybody's going to even forget that he fought the next day. Like the next day, nobody's going to be talking about a Boo Boo Andre fight. Nobody. That's the problem when everyone anoints a fighter as the next big best thing without proving it first. That's right. We're just grading off the curve you created. We're judging the fighter based off of what you're promoting him at. So if you're mass marketing this guy as already the best welterweight, one of the best welterweights we've seen since Sugar Ray Leonard, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters we've seen since Roy Jones. If you're marketing him and packaging him that way, and then we receive the package in the mail and we're like, what is this? You guarantee me the greatest product I've seen in decades, and this dude doesn't stop a dude named Karen, who's a 40-1 favorite against. No. Consumer Report tells me that's false marketing there. And when we have less to go off of course, we're going to jump to conclusions quicker. And the reason that you have this pre-anointing syndrome going on. The preordained syndrome. The reason you have it going on is we have less to go off of. These fighters are giving us so little, right? So we want great fighters to be out there. We want stars to be out there. The goalposts have been moved so far by the power brokers that it's not even recognizable anymore. So when we have so little, we just want so badly for there to be stars out there, like superstars and great fighters. We want it to happen so bad that we go looking for it, and maybe we think we find it somewhere, and then the fight comes along and it's like, no, maybe not. Maybe not. So we're let down even more, but we go searching for it hard because it doesn't fall in our lap like it used to. There were stars everywhere, and it was easy to recognize them. It's tougher to recognize, even for a hardcore boxing fan's eyes. We have so little to go off of now that it's becoming increasingly difficult to know where the great fighters are, where the superstars are, and where they're not. We're missing the target now by a wider margin than we used to. Used to be when you missed on a fighter before, maybe you missed on them a little bit. Now we're missing on fighters big time. Big time. I'll give you a specific example before we start talking about Tank. Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner, I'm old enough to remember old YTBC when I was getting death threats and people calling me David Duke and Hitler for saying, I don't think Adrian Broner's all that good. He's a good fighter, but the red flags are everywhere. This is when people were saying Adrian Broner's number 4 pound for pound, number 5 pound for pound, number 8 pound for pound. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, are you not seeing that he's flat-footed? Are you not seeing that he fights in lulls? Too economical for his weight class. He lets guys get off 6, 7, 8 punches at a time, and then he fights Marcos Maidana, and what happens? And then he never gets that big win at 147. And the red flags were everywhere. He allows inferior opposition to stay in fights with him due to his style, his economic fighting style. And we'll talk about the tightrope style in a minute with Tank Davis. He fights a similar style. But he still has the power in order to say, you know what? He can win that fight. He can turn it on a dime. The Sean Porter fight showed us that, right? Sean Porter outboxes him for 11 rounds, 12th round. Adrian Broner almost gets him out of there. Almost. But no cigar. And that's what I'm saying. Adrian Broner never had that big win, 147, and he couldn't make 140. He didn't have the discipline for it. So he became a guy without a weight class. And for years on YouTube, we were saying this guy is being falsely marketed. He's being packaged wrong. He should be being packaged as an entertaining fighter. So even if he loses, it's not a letdown. He's still in an entertaining fights. But when this guy starts to lose a fight, and you're like, you told me he was a pound for pound fighter. You told me. And he became a pound for pound fighter without the accolades, without proving in the ring first. I can go back, like I can bring back, I have them saved in my other computer, the videos where I said you should be paying attention to Terrence Crawford. There's a guy in the same weight class. He has the personality of a brick wall of sandpaper, but he's a much better fighter than Adrian Broner. He belongs on the pound for pound list, not Adrian Broner. I can bring back those videos, but I was being called all sorts of things for this. We're anointing these fighters early, and we're trying to see what we want to see instead of seeing what's right in front of our face. There were red flags with there for Boots, but I'm not ready to throw him away. I still think he's a top 5 welterweight, top 5, top 6. We'll see what happens going forward. But one thing that needs to happen is they need to get this guy in the ring more often. Overtrained, underfought. Overtrained, underfought. That's what they're doing with these fights. Do you think they regret not doing Ennis versus Ellis? I think so now. But from what being told, Rashidi Ellis wasn't being offered enough for the Boots Ennis fight. And it goes back to what I'm saying about the PBC, non-PBC Showtime thing with Boots Ennis is Al's going to be less reluctant to make those fights since Boots isn't a PBC fighter. And people don't know Boots is not a PBC fighter. He's on Showtime. He's not a PBC fighter. He's on PBC events, but he's not an Al Haymon fighter. So that fight would have been easier to make in-house, obviously. Frank Martin, Michelle Rivera. They were willing to sacrifice Michelle Rivera for the betterment of Frank Martin. They would have been more willing to sacrifice Rashidi Ellis for the betterment of Boots Ennis, but not in this case. Not in this case. And with Rashidi Ellis, and I had people telling me Roy Monvilla was the poison cherry in this card. 7-1 favorite. It climbed to Rashidi Ellis before the fight. And Rashidi Ellis just ended up being one of these growing number of fighters who get in a bigger spot and then disappoint. So, yeah, it would have been nice for Boots Ennis to get that big win against Rashidi Ellis, or a bigger win, right? Than fight Karen and not look so good. It would have been better. It would have been better, but that's not what we get often. We get the over marination, and that's what I'm cheering for in 2023. And there's no disrespect to any fighters, any A-level fighter, any A-side fighter, but I want to see power brokers' plans get spoiled in 2023. I'm tired of the over marination process. I'm tired of the growing number of pay-per-views. I'm tired of the growing number of false marketing of the top fighters in the sport. I want to see plans get ruined. And that's no disrespect to the A-side fighters, but people say that all the time. You're disrespecting the fighters. I'm not. I'm cheering for the B-side fighter, cheering for him. And this is the problem that I see in the sport, is people think that when they speak out for the A-side fighter, they're speaking out for every fighter by extension. They're not. In many points, they're speaking out against the betterment of the B-side fighter. This card on Saturday night was a perfect example of it. 16-1 favorite at the top, 40-1 favorite in the co-main event, another 16-1 favorite, another 7-1 favorite. And Steven Espinoza can get on Twitter. All he wants to say, see, we gave you a good fight, Rashidi Ellis, Vila. You got it wrong. But what about all the other fights on the card? Of course, the odds makers will get one wrong here and there. You have a growing number of people getting mad at people citing odds when we talk about fights. At least we have data to back up why we think the way we think when we talk about odds. These guys are aliens, these odd makers. They're aliens. I don't think you realize it. They're aliens. They're such aliens that there are live odds now. They have these scientific algorithms to where you can do live betting on the second, and you're still not beating these guys. And you can say, well, a good bettor can give 55, a great bettor can give 55%, a good bettor can give 45 to 50%, so we're getting some off of them. But what you're not seeing is when you are getting some off of them, some money off of them, it's generally by a small margin. It's not often. I had to go back 17 years to cite Carlos Baldomir, where they miss on a guy 15-1, Chris Colbert, and then they miss on the guy again 15-1 on Tank Davis, like they would have with Hector Luis Garcia. You got to go back 17 years to find one off the top of my head. They're not missing by that much. They're aliens. So when we're citing betting odds, that's scientific data we can give as to why we feel the way we feel about some of these cards. And when you have a card that every single fight is that much wide odds, don't give me the, Hector Luis Garcia, he's not quitting, and I don't think he's quitting, but what I'm saying is, don't get critical of him in the 8th round. All of a sudden, they're acting like they're speaking out for the B-side fighter. They don't care about the B-side fighter, because if they did, they would be speaking out about this stuff when they see 16-1 main event and saying, it's probably not in that fighter's best safety and interest to be in that fight. There's a dozen or so more fights that could have been closer odds than this fight at the top, 135 and 140. But instead, you gave us that one, 16-1 at the top. So it's probably not in his fighter's safety to be in this fight to begin with, when there are much better fights, even odds fights out there. available to us. But when the fighter gets hurt, then they want to speak out for fighter safety. How about we nip it in the bud and stop more of these fights from happening to begin with? But you need an educated public to be able to do that. And we just simply don't have that right now. I thought Paulie Pillow Hands Malignaggi beat him. That was a close fight. Al Heyman praying to God right now for another Mayweather, but even if Al got him, he wouldn't know how to build him. PBC don't got enough fight dates to go around. And this is an important point here is people act like Al built Floyd, and we know that's not true. PBC don't got enough fight days to go around, and they got too many fighters. That's why their guys fight nearly once a decade. It's the issue that the UFC has right now, right? Is UFC has such a huge roster of fighters, but so many fight days and so much in the budget. So they have the same issue at the top of their sport. Top fighters fighting once per year, maybe twice per year. And that's the issue that PBC has, is you have a dwindling amount of dates and you have these high minimums. So where it's the Boots issue, right? He's with Showtime. He's not with PBC. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is he has exclusive contract with Showtime. He can only fight there. Number three is exclusive contract with Showtime, plus he has a high minimum per fight. So you have to fit that high minimum within the budget. And how do you do that when you have, and how do you build guys as stars when you have a growing number of cards on the Showtime Paramount Network that are pay-per-views? How do you do it? Shout out my guy Nando in the building. Iceman. CY. Was boxing this bad before Al Heyman came into the picture? Hell no. There were fights constantly on HBO, Showtime, and ESPN. Tank reminds me at like a mini Wilder. He's like a mini Wilder with a bit of skill that's weird. I feel like if Tank is in front of legit opponents, it's going to look like Wilder versus Fury. I'll touch on that in a minute. Benavidez, Charlo's Plant, and yes, Tank should be all bigger stars than they are, but lack of activity and competitive fights have hamstrung them all. I think Al Heyman is Mayweather. Mayweather is Al Heyman. Same person. Same person. You never seen him in the same spot because we never see Al Heyman. Is that what you're saying? But let's talk about Tank. Let's just get into it. Tank Davis in this fight with Hector Luis Garcia. It was the obvious, right? What happened was what we expected to happen coming in. Is the Tank Davis theorem at work, right? It's inferior opposition is going to win rounds against him early because he's so economical until they're flat on their back, right? Until Tank eventually gets them out of there. The Tank Davis theorem was true to form on Saturday night. This is what happened. You build Hector Luis Garcia up, or you try to market him. Oh, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. Yes, this is a tune-up for Ryan, but this is more dangerous than you think. It's more dangerous than you think. He's in there with the junior lightweight at lightweight. So then Tank Davis in the first 3 rounds lands 12 punches total, 4 power punches. So in the first 3 rounds, Tank essentially lands 1 power punch per round. 239 total punches thrown in 8 rounds. Power punches, he throws 139. So what does that tell us? 58% of his punches were power punches. That's true to form. That's true to form Tank Davis. 6 out of 10 punches are going to be power punches. That's high output of power punches. 29 punches per round in this fight. Let me repeat that. Tank Davis threw 29 punches per round in this fight. 52 of his power punches landed. So in a typical Tank Davis fight, he throws 34 punches per round. Economical. And let me tell you how economical it is. It's so economical that if you look at the top 10 most economic fighters in the sport, he is the most economical. And out of the top 10, he's the only lighter weight class guy on that list. I think 7 or 8 of them are heavyweights. And one guy's like a light heavyweight. One guy's like a welterweight or middleweight. But he's the only lighter weight class guy on the most economical fighter list. He's literally the most economical fighter in the sport as a lightweight. As a lightweight, he's throwing below average heavyweight punches per round. So what do we say to that? We say it's a fun style. And let me explain to you the tightrope style, because you hear tightrope style being thrown out there. I see my guy Lee Groves out there trying to explain it. What the tightrope style means is you're so economical as a fighter. If you're throwing 34 punches per round at lightweight, you need to make them all count. You need to make them count. And you need to get guys out of there. You have to get guys out of it. And he has 26 out of 28 fights. He's getting guys out of it. You have to get guys out of there. The one fight where he didn't get a guy out recently was Isaac Cruz, and it was close. It was close. Isaac Cruz moving up in weight. It was a close fight. But what I'm saying is you're walking that tightrope. There's little, like very little margin for error when you're throwing 34 punches per round as a lightweight. And when you get down to 29 punches per round, like this fight, it's why we saw through 6 rounds on my scorecard, it was an even fight. Through 8 rounds, I had it 5-3 for Tank. And I think that's why Hector Luis Garcia eventually made, and there's no disrespect, it's a smart move. Eventually, he made a business decision at the end of the 8th round and said, you know what? He's won 2 straight rounds. He's ramping it up a little bit. His output got up to 46 punches this round. I think he landed 75% of his power punches in the 8th round. He outlanded Hector Luis Garcia 30-3 in the 8th round. 8th round was a bloodbath. And on top of that, he's seeing chaos. The fight's getting more chaotic. You got a washed up rapper trying to fight an inactive featherweight outside the ring. The fight stops. He's seeing chaos. He gets caught with a bunch of shots after that. He's like, I need to make a business decision here. I got a belt at 130. I need to go back down to the weight class where I belong. And I had people coming at me on Twitter and YouTube last week for saying this is he's a 130-pound fighter. There are weight classes for a reason. I had people saying, oh, look at the size difference, though. Weight classes doesn't matter. Rankings don't matter. Look at the pictures. The pictures say that Hector Luis Garcia is the same size as Tank Davis, if not bigger. There are weight classes for a reason. And I know people get wrapped up in emotions here. People have their favorite fighters over here. Of course, we're all going to have our biases, but we try to keep it as unbiased as possible. And when you try to tell people the truth, you're going to get your head. They're going to try to chop your head off. And the truth of the matter is Hector Luis Garcia is a good junior lightweight. He's a good junior lightweight. He's a good fighter in a shallow division. It's the truth. It's the truth. So when you step up to lightweight against a guy there be one of the best pound for pound out there, you're going to have some issues. And the 8th round, he was having a lot of issues. And chaos was ensuing. He made a business decision. I'm just going to go back down to 130. I got my belt there. I got my money tonight. Good. Good for him. Good for him. But that tightrope style, this is the frustration with boxing fans who have been following the sport for at least a generation, some even longer, is we're seeing a growing number of fighters in this sport that we didn't see in generations previous. We're seeing a growing number of fighters who are a decade into their career and simply haven't accomplished much on their resume, but their resumes are being padded. It's the issue that basketball fans have. And I have to check myself because I don't want to be the guy. I never wanted to be that fuddy-duddy. I never wanted to be the guy on the front porch. Keep the music down. Stop skateboarding in front of my house. I don't want to be that guy. I fully respect the new age fighters, the new age athletes, but it mirrors basketball when we see guys breaking scoring records today and we're seeing there's no hand checking. You can't grab guys off the ball. You can't check guys and elbow them when they go in the lane. It's easier to score. You try to explain this to younger, and it's those who know the least know it the loudest, right? That's the issue with fights like this on Saturday night is the casuals take over, and the casuals know the most. So the guys out on boxing Twitter or doing podcasts, they're just gonna be drowned out by the casual fan for at least a couple nights, and it's frustrating. But you try to explain to them that what they're being promoted as they're watching is not actually what they're watching. Damian Lillard isn't a better scorer than Clyde Drexler just because he broke Clyde Drexler's record. He's just simply playing in a scoring league. Matt Stafford is not a better passer than Joe Montana because he threw for 5,000 yards in a season. He's not. He's just throwing in a passing game, a passing era. So when we see a growing number of fighters who are a decade in, like Tank Davis, David Benavidez, Tank Davis, his career turns 10 next month. It turns a decade next month. And we look at his resume and we're like, where are the big names? Where's the big fight? Where is it? But you're going to be called all kind of names if you bring this up. It's like he shouldn't have been in here with Hector Luis Garcia on this night. At least we seem to be getting somewhere, right? At least it looks like Ryan Garcia is the next fight. And Tank and Ryan need each other more than they even know, more than their fan bases even know. More on that in a minute. But we're seeing this growing number of fighters who are 10 years in being compared to the rates of previous eras, and they're just simply not accomplishing much. And what we're saying is, and I have people with good boxing minds texting me Saturday night, Sunday morning, like, he's explosive, but does this economical style work at the top? We simply don't know. 10 years in, don't know. I'm left watching this fight Sunday morning. I'm left thinking, does that work against Devin? Does that work against Loma? Does that work against Shakur? Does that work against Regis? Does that work against Jose Ramirez? Any number of fighters at 140, really. Would that tightrope style work against those guys? We simply don't know yet. They've gotten creative with the marketing. They've gotten creative of building these B-side fighters up as to some, like Raleigh Romero was the biggest one. It's like you watch Raleigh Romero on Instagram and you look at the rankings and you look at his fight 2 fights previous where he clearly lost, and they're building this guy up as this dangerous undefeated fighter when he can't set up punches. And I look at that and I'm envious. Like, I'm envious of Mayweather Promotions. I'm envious of Showtime. I'm envious of Al that they can market it this way and get away with it. Envious of it. I wish I could sell stuff like that. I wish I was that good of a salesman. Zab Judah once said that about Don King with the Carlos Baldomir fight. It's like, I lost to Carlos Baldomir and I was still able to fight Floyd Mayweather in my next fight as a championship fight. That's how great of a salesman Don King was. And it's the same thing with Al, PBC, Steven. And this isn't exclusive to PBC or Showtime. It's everywhere, but they do it the best. They do it the best, and I'm envious of it. They get people to believe things like, I mean, my 8-year-old son, I get him to believe in Santa Claus, and each year I'm growing. I'm thinking, how does he still believe this? It's wonderful, but how does he still believe it? And it's the same thing with the PBC cult. It's like, how do they still believe the stuff that Al is selling? How? But I'm left wondering, like, does this tightrope style work at the top? Can you throw 29 to 34 punches per round and beat a Devin Haney, who's going to be up jabbing, and does not take much risk? You can talk about his chin all you want, but he does not take much risk. And it's tough. Like, that's why you think of it, right? As you watch Tank fight, and he's explosive. And he's throwing a high number of power punches. And he has finishing skills, but he's doing this against other guys. And that's no disrespect to those guys, but it's other guys. It's not the guys. What happened to Matteo Barrios after the fight? Where is he? Leveraged that into a fight with Keith Thurman, lost. Where'd he go? Watch where Raleigh Romero's at 2 years from now. So they market these guys up, but then over time, they sort of fall. The truth tells over time. So I'm watching Tank land 4 power punches in the first 3 rounds. I'm watching Tank land 12 total punches in the first 3 rounds. I'm watching him throw 15 punches in the first round. And I'm wondering what happens if ever he would fight a guy like a Lomachenko or Shakur Stevenson, who's just going to go up 4-0, 5-0 possibly. And then Tank's going to decide, oh, I've done this in the past. I've gotten away with it in the past. Let me step up the output now. And then when the chin is good, or when they can hold or clinch or get creative, then what do you do? What do you do? What do you do when you're down 7-3 and you need to pull the rabbit out of the hat and you've done it in the past? Can you do it again? Can you do it at the top level? It's what we're left thinking watching a performance like this. It's you're 3-3, I think, on an unbiased scorecard halfway through the fight against a junior lightweight who, if he was that lightweight, likely wouldn't be a top 10 lightweight. So what do we do? What do we do with that? Can you get away with that at top level? And what I'm saying is it's troubling that we're still asking these questions a decade in. It's troubling. So Tank Davis wins the fight, and he wins the fight in the fashion that we expected. We expected this. We expected give up rounds. It's the Tank Davis theorem in action. Give up rounds to inferior opposition early and then stop them. And then you build that opponent up as somebody who was better than we thought. The odds were wrong. That guy might even climb in the rankings after the Tank fight. He becomes a commodity. And then Tank rolls on. But I think the intelligent boxing fans are starting to ask, like, does that work at the top level? Can you get away with throwing 30 punches per round at the top level of lightweight at 140? Can you? So that brings me to Ryan Garcia. PBC too concerned with maintaining the O and almighty A status. Their guys ain't Mayweather, not even close. They want to believe Ellis, thinking he's floored. And I don't have much to say about Ellis, really. I mean, he lost to Vila, got upset, and he's one of those growing number of forgettable fighters, right? I mean, I don't want to throw guys away after a loss. That's not what I'm about here, but these guys are being promoted as something bigger than they are, and they're just not active enough. Most people like boxers. We like boxing. And that's the thing, right? It's emotional versus rational. And the more attached you get to fighters for substance issues, the more irrational you're going to get, right? There's no issue with being, look, you can be a fan of a fighter for whatever reason you want. Nationality, skin color, any of it. They're from the same region as you, any of it. I'm a fan of Regis Prograis. But the issue, he's from New Orleans. But the issue is you got to be able to check these fighters. Like Regis Prograis made some bad business decisions as far as boxing. You got to be able to say that. Miguel Cotto, arguably my favorite fighter of the modern era. Miguel Cotto made some comments like he becomes lineal middleweight champion, and then they ask him about Golovkin, and he forgets English. No say, forgets English. You got to be able to check your favorite fighters. So, but the more you're attached to a fighter for substance issues, for not substance issues, for surface issues, the more irrational you're going to be when it goes wrong for those fighters. That's when I say something like Hector Garcia wouldn't be a top 10 lightweight. Hector Garcia is a good fighter in a shallow division. He is a champion. He's accomplished a lot. 15-1 favorite. They're going to hang on, upsetting a 15-1 favorite against Colbert, consummate professional. But when they're going to hang on to me saying not a top 10 lightweight and good fighter in a shallow division. But anybody who's unbiased can see that, right? But if you get attached to him for surface issues, you're gonna have issues with people saying that. When you're attached to Tank for surface issues or whoever, like you're going to hang on to somebody saying he's an economical fighter, but the stats back up that he's the most economical fighter in the sport, throwing 34 punches per round as a lightweight. When you're doing that, you have no margin for error. So when you step up the level of competition, the margin of error gets slighter. It'll work in AAA, but does it work in the majors? And even if you get to the majors, does it work in the playoffs? It may work week 3, but does it work in January and February in the playoffs? Levels. So does this economical fighting style work at the top level? We simply don't know yet. We simply don't know yet, fellas. We don't know yet. We've never seen Tank, besides the Pedraza, we've never seen Tank at that top level of a weight class. We haven't seen it yet. Everybody knows who his top peers are. Everybody knows that, right? Everybody knows who the guys are. Everybody knows the guy in the weight class right now is Devin Haney. Showtime never got that. Showtime was calling Tank the champion, right? And that's the believable. I had people sending me pictures of being out in Washington, D.C., and they're seeing the flyers out there being put out by PBC and Showtime of Davis versus Garcia, and they got Ryan Garcia's name at the top billing of the fight. They got Rashidi Ellis underneath it, Boo Boo Andrade, and they got Ryan Garcia's face at the top. These are official PBC flyers being handed out in DC, and their base may not know better. It's very much a casual base, so they don't know when they're being sold snake oil. But I'm not a fun sucker. 19,000. This dude can sell. Tank can sell, and he's exciting. That tightrope style is exciting. All I'm asking is, does that work at the top level? We need to find out. And it brings me to Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia is next, April 15th, April 17th, pending the court dates in February. And I hope it all goes well, because unless Tank is guilty, then I don't know anything about the case, to be honest. But if he's guilty, he should get what he gets. But if not, we move on to the fight in April. And if the fight in April happens, Tank and Ryan mirror each other in so many ways inside and outside the ring. And as far as outside the ring, by the way, another issue with this era is more battles are being fought outside the ring. It's marketing guys outside the ring to where, no. What you think you're watching is not actually what you're watching. These fighters are actually better than you think. And the B-side fighter is better than, and this guy wins this mythical matchup versus this guy. This guy would beat Willie Pep easy, beat Henry Armstrong easy. Tank wins every mythical battle ever fought. And to an extent, the Ryan Garcia fans do the same thing, but they mirror each other in so many ways. Economical fighters, although Ryan not nearly as economical as Tank, he's still an economical fighter who relies heavily on power, who is a star in boxing, who has a casual base. They've connected with a casual base, so it's a big fight. But neither one of them have that big career-defining win. Neither one of them have that thick resume throughout their career. They need each other, and they need each other in more ways than that. They need each other because when I look at these two fighters stylistically against their top peers, they match up with each other the best. In other words, if Tank is going to beat a top-level fighter at 135 or 140, it's going to be against Ryan. If Ryan beats a top-level fighter at 135 or 140, it's going to be against Tank. Don't doubt me on that. These guys match up. They have the highest chance of winning against each other than they do against any other top peer weight classes. They do. Stylistically, they do. They need each other. You've seen Jerry Maguire, right? You complete me. These guys complete each other. They need each other. They are happy that each other are around. Trust me. And Oscar's happy that Tank's around. Al's happy that Ryan's around. I'm telling you, they'd much rather put these guys in with each other than the other top peers in those weight classes. Not only because they're bigger names, because stylistically they match up with each other better than their other top peers. And that's why I wouldn't be surprised to see a second fight. If there's a split, possibly a third fight. Stay busy with each other, because if you're going to get the big win, it's going to be against each other. They need each other. They need each other. Tank needs Ryan. Ryan needs Tank. I'm telling you, if that economical style of Tank is going to work, it's going to work against a guy like Ryan, because Ryan is more economical than the other top peers. And there's a reason, other than weight draining Ryan Garcia, there's another reason this fight's at 136. And it could have been at 139, 138, 137, but this fight was going to be at a catch weight because it had to stay true to the Tank Davis, now Ryan Garcia theorem. And that's, these guys don't campaign in a single weight class, and they say they don't care about belts. And obviously, Tank's team contradicts that by campaigning him or marketing him as a 3-division champ, right? Showtime does the same thing. They say they don't care about the belts, but they'll market him as a 3-division champ. But other than that, the Tank Davis theorem stays true to form. Is these guys say, I don't care. We're above the belts. I don't care. We're above the belts. Look at how many Instagram followers I have. Look at how many Twitter followers I have. Look how many people I got on Facebook or wherever. We've got them all. We've got the casual base at all. We're above the belts. Let Devin, you heard Floyd. Let Devin and Teofimo and Lomachenko and Shakur, let them fight over there with belts. We'll stay over here. There's a reason they're doing that, right? And I think the red flag is the economical part of it. Is even they're asking themselves, does 30 punches per round work against the top level guys? So we make these guys chameleons, right? We don't campaign in a single weight class. We'll fight lighter guys at higher weight classes, according to if you're Tank, Leo Santa Cruz, Isak Cruz. This past fight, Hector Luis Garcia, a junior lightweight at lightweight. And we'll just market these guys as top fighters. It's fine. But we're not going to campaign at lightweight. We're going to fight junior lightweights at lightweights. We're going to move up to 140, fight for a Reggie belt up there against the number 8 or number 9 guy, Matteo Barrios. And then once Josh Taylor calls us out, we'll say, no, you don't bring anything to the table. What? Matteo Barrios brings something to the table, but Josh Taylor doesn't? So when Josh Taylor or Regis Prograis call us out, no. You don't understand. We're lightweights. So when the other lightweights see that and see Tank move back down and call him out, it's no, you got to cross the street. No, we're going to fight a lightweight. And it's the same thing with Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia says, I'm not a lightweight anymore. I'm moving up to 140, but then he fights 135 pounders at 140. And he's fighting them at catchweights. And then when Tank and Ryan announce a fight, of course, it's going to be at a catchweight. They stay chameleons. We're not a lightweight. We're not a junior welterweight. We're not none of that. We're just above boxing. We're above the belts. We're above the weight rankings. We're above it. Fair enough. Don't get mad when your guy's not in the pound for pound rankings, though. If you don't care about rankings, you don't care about weight classes, don't get mad when they're not ranked high then. Have your cake and eat it too, right? That's part of the theorem. Fight junior lightweights at lightweight. Fight lightweights at junior welterweight. Then fight at catchweights when we do fight each other. It's part of it. It's not just draining Ryan Garcia down. If it wasn't about draining Ryan Garcia down, then they'd fight at 137, 138, 139. But it was going to be at a catchweight. It was going to be there. We're above the belts. We're above weight class rankings. We're above it. We don't need it. We just want to see the best fight the best, not where one fighter has all the advantages. Serious question. If Raleigh's PBC's Brandon Lee is 27-0. That's what I'm talking about. It's still fighting club fighters in 8-rounder. It's endemic to PBC at this point, shaking my head. In this card, like Lamont Peterson comes back and gets blasted away. And they care about fighter safety, though, right? They care about fighter safety, but Peterson comes back, gets blasted away after 4 years of not fighting. Brandon Lee's destroying guys in 8-rounders. Televised card is the closest odds fight you have is 7-1. And like I said, chaos. I'm glad Vila pulled off the upset. Nothing against Rashidi Ellis. 40-1, 16-1, 20-1. But we all care about fighter safety, right? The biggest threat to fighter safety is not drug use. It's not. They're going to come after me for saying that too. It's mismatches. When you say you care about fighter safety, what you're saying is you care about the safety of the A-side fighter. That's all y'all worry about. You don't worry about the safety of the B-side fighter. If you did, there would be less mismatches. I'm in New Orleans too. I'm pulling for Regis, Prograis, for show. I am too, but I keep it real. I keep it real with Regis. It's like he could have done some things in the past that could have made it a bit easier for him. Nonetheless, we cheer for him down here. I don't even know how the big boxing channels fall for the Tank cherry opponents, like all the big boxing channels, super, super biased for Tank. It's always blind blowing to me. That's why I get a lot of pushback here. It's an extreme fan base, and they're not going to go against Tank in any manner because one, they'll lose credentials. Two, they'll have people fall off, subscribers fall off, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just going to keep going, even if they know it. And some of them might not know it. Some of them might believe what they say, but I think a lot of them don't. But they got to keep going with it. They got to keep going with it in order to keep that base. I don't even know. Oh, I read that one already. Don't the fighters themselves realize they're the ones ruining boxing by constant ducking, not fighting at all, or fighting nothing but no hopers? I don't think the thing is, I don't think any of them care as long as they're getting their interest. And that's why I tell people, stop worrying about being called anti-fighter by speaking up for your own interests as boxing fans, because we're the only one not speaking out for our own interests. And we've been brainwashed to not speak out for our own interests because we'll be called anti-fighter for doing it. Every time I talk about a bad pay-per-view, I get pushback. Don't buy it anyway. Don't buy it anyway. Why are you complaining? Why are you over here complaining about me complaining? I've got a channel. I've got a platform over on Twitter. I'll complain about the mismatches if I want to. PBC's being run like Mayweather's career with each fighter, but the thing is, though, it's not. It's not, because, and I say that respectfully, it is according to the money Mayweather, but Floyd was led over career. About this all is that's how Floyd ended up getting the back end money. Is he was working early on in his career. He fought 6-7 times in '98. Was Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year. 2 years into his career, he was the Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year, and he did that by winning a legit title against Genaro Hernandez. He knew that the belts mattered, won the fight, and then defended it less than 2 months later. I think like 7 weeks later, 6-7 weeks later, against Angel Manfredi to cap off the year. Hyperactive, fighting in meaningful fights. And Oscar did it the year before. Oscar fought 5 times in a single calendar year, 5 title fights as the Ring Magazine pound for pound fighter of the sport. 5 years into his career. 5 years into his career, this dude fought 5 title fights. He had already fought, I think, 20, 21 title fights at that point, something like that, or close to it. And he was the Ring Magazine pound for pound fighter of the sport, outpacing the rest of the sport. And people wonder how these dudes became stars. They became stars because they knew you have to go through the fire before you get the currency, the big currency. And then people will be out there saying, no, you can cheat the system now because look at Tank. Tank's selling out 19,000 in Washington. But what I'm saying is this dude would be an even bigger star if he was promoted correctly. Tank would be a household name. Ryan would be a household name. People know him from Instagram. This pay-per-view might do 500 to 750,000 buys, whatever it is. Household names, though. These dudes would be bigger stars than they are if promoted correctly, if the traditional way. And the traditional way still works. The new age boxing media is not going to want any part of that, any part of me saying that. But the traditional way of going through the fire, legacy over currency, brings you more of both over time. Currency over legacy gets you less of both over time. Tank would be making even more money if promoted correctly, be an even bigger star. I feel they're mostly different outside the ring. I don't see too many people fight mythical fights for Ryan. Ryan is a very disliked fighter. He gets a bad rep, in my opinion. Possibly. We'll tell over time. We'll be able to tell over time. I can see why Ryan rubs people the wrong way. I can understand that. But I do believe this Tank versus Ryan fight is happening mostly because Ryan put a lot of pressure on this fight happening. So I got to give Ryan that credit. I got to give him that credit. He was the most vocal about this fight happening, and he gave up. You can just see with the weight. I'm sure Ryan would rather this fight happen at 139 than 136, but they're fighting it at 136. I think he gave up the most concessions in order to get this fight, and he was the most vocal about it happening. So we're going to get it now. And like I said, Tank needs Ryan. Ryan needs Tank. If they're going to get a top win, a big win, it's going to be against each other rather than against their peers, or at least there's a higher percentage chance of that happening. And all parties involved know this. They know it. They're not dumb. They know it. So the key question is, where do we rank these guys? Let's say Tank beats Ryan. Where do we rank them then? Say Ryan pulls off the win against Tank. Where do we? They'll likely skyrocket up, without beating the other peers in those weight classes. I don't know. Time will tell. I don't agree about that with Ryan. Oscar is all about accomplishments. And I just mentioned Oscar's accomplishments, which is true. So time will tell with Ryan, and y'all might be right about Ryan. Ryan might have that dog in him. We'll get a clear view in April how much of a dog Ryan has in him. And we'll see if y'all are right about that. But Ryan, I got to give him that credit. Ryan wanted this fight more than anybody, it looks like. He wanted this fight, and he made it. He went out and made this fight. But, I mean, just to recap, I don't know if that economical style will work at the top level. I just don't know. And the fact that we're still asking this question a decade in tells us everything we need to know. And there's something going on. There's something behind the scenes. There are red flags, and I think it's the economic thing. I think people understand that winning top fights at lightweight, at junior welterweight, throwing 30 punches per round is you're walking quite the tightrope at that point. Quite the tightrope. You're walking a thin tightrope at that point. And I think hardcore boxing fans understand that. And we see 10 years in, still not the big fight. Something going on there. But the good news for the Tank fans, extreme fans, is Ryan is a winnable fight. And the good news for the Ryan fans is Tank is a winnable fight. This is close. Anybody out there telling you that they have a good handle of what happens on Tank versus Ryan, they're lying. I don't think anybody has a good handle of what happens when those guys get in the ring with each other. We have a good handle on their style, on the CompuBox data, on the stats. They're both economical fighters. They both mirror each other. They're both highly reliant on power and knockouts. They're both technical fighters. They're both undervalued defensive fighters, and you see that pull up in Tank stats. But how does that work at the top level? We'll get a clearer understanding in April. And I don't think anybody has a good handle on how that fight goes. And that's the exciting thing about it. Stylistically, it's a fun fight. Two guys who are marketable. They're going to make fireworks together. It'll sell. And that's good news for the sport. Hopefully it comes off. Hopefully this happens. And unfortunately, we're in a period of inactivity when you see a Gary Russell Jr. waste his fight against a washed-up fighter ringside. His one fight of 2023 against a washed-up rapper. And I got people mad at me on Twitter for calling Meek Mill a washed-up rapper. One of the most annoying rappers I've ever heard, by the way. Can that dude not scream on every single song? Can you not scream? Not all of us are trying to bench press every single day. Like, can you at least give us some more like laid back tracks every once in a while? This dude screaming on every single song, but he's screaming ringside. So that was not in my bingo card for 23. Meek Mill versus Gary Russell Jr. ringside. So hopefully that's not what Gary Russell Jr.'s one skirmish for the year that he always gives us. But when you have inactivity, and I'll keep driving this home every single show, when you have this level of inactivity, you're going to have more rust. And that's why you're going to have more of Boots Ennis versus Karen where Boots doesn't look all that good. And don't get mad at us when we grade these fighters on the curves that you created. You created this curve. You said that Boots was the next guy. You said that Boots was the welterweight champion already without fighting any of these guys. You said that Boots was the best we've seen since Ray Leonard, since Roy Jones of the 90s, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters we've ever seen. His feet don't even touch the ground. He glides, all this stuff. You said this stuff, so we got to grade him on the same curve. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't get away with saying these guys are this great, and then when they don't look this great, say, no, it's just an off night. It's an off night. He fights once per year. He can't be afforded an off night. He won 120 to 108, lay off. You have such high expectations of him if you say he's 120, 108 and he looked bad. No, I'm just grading him on the curve that you created. If he's this great, he needs to be stopping these guys. Other great fighters are stopping guys like this. I don't want to hear that he's running any of this stuff. Inoue knocks out Butler. Butler clearly in there to survive. Inoue knocks him out. Mel knocks out what's his face? Mel knocks him out in the undisputed fight. Castaño. Sorry, he knocks out Castaño in undisputed. The great fighters get it done. I don't know. Ennis didn't win 120 to 108. That was the biggest nonsense of the night. My guy, True School Sports. And that's what I was saying earlier is these people telling me he won every second of every round. That's not the fight I saw. But this is what they're telling me. They're telling me he won the fight every second of every round, lay off. And it's damage control. We were saying all kind of outlandish things about this guy on Friday, on Thursday. And look, but by the way, I think Boots is super talented. I'm not out here throwing away. All I'm saying, you can't say these things Thursday and Friday, and then when people start to criticize the performance on Saturday night, say, lay off. You're grading him on too steep of a curve. You created the curve. You did it. How are we supposed to grade him? You're calling him the greatest welterweight we've seen since Ray Leonard. How are we supposed to do this? What are we supposed to do? You're saying he can move up to middleweight. He can move up to even super middleweight and beat those guys. What are we supposed to do with that? When a guy comes in there and goes a distance with Karen as a 40 to 1 favorite, what are we supposed to do? Then we're supposed to be nice. Oh, yeah, no. Good performance. Wide scorecard. Yeah, he's still the greatest. What are we supposed to do? So that's where I'm at with that. Be careful how you judge fighters because we're going to grade them on that curve. Boots doesn't have to fight Virgil. That's what I've been told. He doesn't need to fight him. He's already better than Virgil. Virgil's a caveman. Virgil doesn't have half the boxing ability of Boots. Show me. Let's see it. Well, we can't because cross promotion and all of that. What am I supposed to do with that? So on that note, man, I'm out till tomorrow. HCP tonight, D-Styles channel, 8 p.m. Central. D-Styles channel, D-Style Boxing, 8 p.m. Central. Make sure to set your alerts when he sets the show later on. We will be back. HCP, Hispanics Causing Panic, is back tonight over on D-Styles channel. Peace. God bless.